from defined benefit to target benefit plans. So these are all issues that are very relevant to today. There are issues where we have to use our collective power to draw a line in the sand and say no more. This is where we stand, this is where we fight, and this is exactly one issue that Sheila and I are very proud to stand behind Scott. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott. I hope you'll join me in giving him a very warm Cowichan lady Smith in the
Thank you, and I appreciate the comments. And before I start, I just want to say to Sheila and Alistair, we are so lucky in Ottawa to have these two people in the House of Commons. They fight hard, they do amazing work, so I want to say thank you, BC, for sending them, and keep on sending them because they're just doing fantastic, fantastic work. But I came here, you know, I'm the pension critic, and Alistair has given me a little bit of background of me, but I was a steel worker for over 30 years, and I worked in the steel mill at Stelco. I went through a CCAA process in 2004. I lived it. I was the president of the union. I spent about 2.5 years in Toronto in the courts every day, fighting to make sure that our workers and our pensioners did not lose. It was a very, very hard struggle, but during that time, we were successful. I decided to, after I restructured the company, help them out, that I wanted to retire and work in a garage and do my little handyman work and woodworking, but that didn't work out. I was asked to run for city council. I did. I served 3 terms, and during that time I was asked to run as the MP for Hamilton Mountain. So here I am today, and I was given the blessing by our leaders, our former leader Tom Mulcair and now Jagmeet, that to be the pension critic. I love doing that work. I have a little bit of interest in it because I want to make sure what I went through and some of our other pensioners went through, it doesn't happen again. So I'm going to start to say that, you know, the Liberals ran on a platform that they're going to stabilize and they're going to improve our pension plans. And well, I'm not here to slam them down. I have some differences with them, and I think it's very, very important that you hear my concerns, because when it starts with the CPP that we thought were going to get some help, they did some good work, a little step, but it does not help us at all, anybody in this room. It's going to help our children, because they won't see the benefit to on CPP2 for 47 years. So that's going to help our children, some of our children, and then our grandchildren. But one of the things that he left out on CPP2 was called a child rearing and people with disabilities. And CPP1, you could take out 7 years of that time. You would not be penalized. What they did was they took your 40 years of work. If you were raising children, you could use up to 7 years, or people on disabilities, and they would deduct that off those years, and then they would come up with an average of what you did. It was Pierre Trudeau that did that. He found the injustice back in 1974. Now with CPP2, we noticed that it was omitted. And we went to them and they said it was an error, it was an oversight, and they had to go back to the provinces. And, well, it wasn't an oversight, and I have that in writing. They omitted it. So we put the pressure on, and what they do now is they call it, CPP1 is called drop-out, and CPP2 it's called drop-in. So you wonder, you know, you get different language, but now what they do is they take those 5 years, not 7, they take 5, and they actually count it as income and putting it in, so they don't deduct those years away from you. So they go for the 5 years previous of your income, and you could be laid off, anything can happen, so it's not really going to work out. You're basically getting a half a cup of water. So to me, that was a kind of an attack on the pension plan, and something that we're still going to work on. The second part was the GIS. The government did come through with their promise of the GIS. They raised it up to about $960 for the people at the maximum level. But the problem is a lot of people didn't realize they took something away. And we didn't know until actually there was a case in Hamilton, and then we found out there was more cases out west here, where involuntary separation. So you could have a married couple, as you know, you get the GIS based on a threshold of income, and if you're married, it goes a little bit higher. But what was happening is if one person in the house went sick and had to go into long-term care, that's quite expensive. So in this particular case, the lady and the husband and the man were making just a little bit over $32,000, just a little bit over. They never got the GIS. He had to go into long-term care. It cost him $22,000. So that limited her income down to about $12,000, $11,500 exactly what it was. We told her to apply for the GIS as a single person as involuntary separation. And the government changed the law January 1st of last year. They said they were just enforcing the policy. So that means the lady had to live in poverty now. They still counting the money as income as a partner. To get away from that, to get her to get that money, what we told the government is people have to legally divorce. And that was sad. So they listened to us, we caught it, they put it back, they made it retroactive, and we're very happy. But they are attacking, again, the pension. And then we have Bill C-27. People should be very, very interested in what they're trying to do. The way the bill is written, it's written only for the Crown corporations and federal private sector businesses. It's not meant for anybody provincial yet. But I'm just saying the way the bill is written. And what it does is takes a defined benefit plan, which you have your guaranteed money that you know you're gonna retire on, and it converts it over to what they call a target plan. A target plan is a defined benefit, but if it doesn't meet the target, every year it has to get an actuarial report. If it doesn't meet that target, you have to renegotiate what you're gonna have. There's no stability in your pension. You don't know, you might lose it, you might have to raise your premiums, or you could do both. And even if you're retired and it doesn't meet the target, you may lose some of your pension. So what it basically does, for real, is it takes all the burden off the company on a defined benefit, and it puts all the risk onto the retiree. So they're switching it. What's dangerous part about this is we don't want it, for one thing. The unions are fighting very, very hard. The Conservatives tried to put this in. They were being lobbied for years. And I'm bringing in the lobby because you're going to hear something that's really amazing. When the Conservatives found out about it and they went to push it through, the pushback was unbelievable. They just said, we're not going to do it. The Liberals came in very quietly, never campaigned on it. A year later, the year anniversary of their date, they were in government, they snuck this bill in. It was about 350 pages, and there was a little section, and it was C-27, and it was sponsored by our Finance Minister, Bill Morneau. He was the person that was lobbying the government of the Conservatives. He became the Finance Minister. He owns a company called Morneau. They make a fortune off of this. So if it goes through, what will happen, you're going to have all the provinces and all the private companies are going to say, me too. And what they're going to try to do is they're saying it has to have the union's permission, we got to have all these permissions, but the bill is written so ambiguous that we don't know if the retirees are protected by the union or if they're not protected by the union. And if it does go through, they're going to hang little wee carrots and say, we're going to give you better health care, we're going to give you all this stuff. And if you don't do it, then they're going to get nasty and they're going to start locking people out and make you suffer until you change your mind. So it's a dangerous bill that takes all the risk onto the pensioner. So to me, that is a huge attack. And it should never happen because we need stability when we go to retire. Last but not least is my bill, and that's the CCAA bill. It's called Bill C-384. And as Alistair has said before, this is not new. This has been done many a times. On this one, I did a lot of studying. It took me a year just to find out why the bill hasn't gone through when The Conservatives, they kind of agree, but they didn't want to do that when they were in power. The Liberals that campaigned on it said this should never happen again, or what happened to Stelco and Nortel. We've been waiting for 2 years. Meanwhile, I've been working with some very, very experienced lawyers. I've been working with the unions and their experts. We've been sitting at a table for almost 8 months and putting our heads together how the bill should be written. And we finally did it, and I tabled the bill on November the 6th. I've been asking questions of it, and what my bill does, because what happens in the existing law, is your pensions, your private pensions and even your public pensions are covered by the provinces. They administrate them. They have the laws of the province. And that's how they're done. It's supposed to be guaranteed. But in CCAA, which is the Company Creditors Arrangement Act, and the BIA, the Business Investment Act, those federal laws supersede any kind of legislation that you have in the province of pensions. And it's the wild, wild west. So what happens is a company might be underfunded under their pension plan, have a large deficit. They have to pay the premiums as normal when they go into bankruptcy protection, but the underfunded liability is cut off. They go in there and they say, Judge, I can't make these special payments. I got to get back on my feet. Please give us a break until we decide what we can do. Judge says, okay. And then they turn around and say, Judge, by the way, I can't pay for their benefits anymore. We got to cut off all the seniors' benefits. There's too much money. I got to get back on my feet. Judge says, okay. Oh, by the way, Judge, out of that, some of that money that we're borrowing from this new lender, I need $25 million so I can pay my executives bonuses so they will stay at the plant and I can keep their experience. Judge says, okay. It's not the judge is a bad judge, okay? The reason why they do it is because they can, the way the law is written. It's the wild, wild west. There is no law. You make it up as you go along. For some of us who might know Judge Roy Bean back in the olden days. Just make the laws as they come across. So this is unfair. This is not proper. And then what they do is they try to open up your contract at the same time, and if you don't do that, then you're basically negotiating for your own pensions. It's your money, it's deferred wages. And then if they liquidate, you become, on the underfunded liability, you become an unsecured creditor. You're not up the top. So the banks would be paid first, the shareholders would be paid. It's prioritized, there's about 5 different levels. The pensioners are at the bottom for the unfunded liability. And by the time the company is liquidated and everybody's paid and all the other people that they're in debt to, you're fighting for pennies on the dollar. And that's how, then the pension plan has to be wound up. And if it's 80% funded, you get 80 cents on the dollar. That's money that should not be taken away from you. That's money that you paid into. They have an obligation to fund that plan. Yes, the market goes up and down. It could be underfunded, it could be overfunded. But lately, companies are taking advantage of this. And we have Nortel, where basically billions of dollars were taken away. Pensioners lost about 40 to 45%. You got Stelco. We went to Stelco 2. We saved the pensions, but to get the funded liability, this is a new one, they get bolder. And they make the laws as we go along. But on Stelco, the new company took over and it was almost $1 billion in underfunded. The new company said, we will pay $500 million into the pension fund if you sign the agreement, and we're going to give you 880 hectares of contaminated land. And you guys sell that and you put it into your pension fund. And you go and make your health benefits with this. The Ontario government went for that. So you can imagine a foreign company coming here, has an obligation to clean up any kind of their land, whatever they're going to do. And they give it to us to say, go see if you can put it sell it and put it in your pension fund. They're off the hook. Taxpayers are on the hook now. So they get boldered. And then they turn around and they said, we can't pay our land taxes anymore during CCAA. It hit the city so hard because they were paying between $9 to $12 million a year. That took that money out of the budget. So you imagine you got 20,000 workers without health care. People needed medication, so our social costs went up, and we had to raise land taxes. So those same taxes that we're raising to help these people are the people that lost the pension, some of their pension, and their benefits. So it's a vicious circle. And what we're saying is that no more. We got to stop this stealing. If you go into CCAA, the judge, we got to make it a law. The judge cannot rule on this, and the judge has said that to us many times. I have to do it because legislation doesn't stop me. So if we put legislation there that you cannot take the benefits away during that process, then we can stop it. The second part of my bill is we're going to be a secured creditor. Before any money's paid out to any one of those companies, the banks, the investors, the money has to be put into the pension fund. And then you can go and divide and share it all you want, because it's our money. Don't take it away from us. Stop stealing it. And stop giving it to the shareholders, because that's what happened in Sears. Sears was the worst I've ever seen in my life. It was so creative that they knew they were in trouble. They weren't making a profit. And you only pay dividends when you make a profit to the shareholders. When Sears got into trouble in 2006, a person by the name of Eddie Lampert became the CEO of ECL, Investors, bought the company, and basically paid out dividends when the company was losing. The pension plan was about $36 million at that time, underfunded. $36 million. Wasn't bad, easy to fix. But every year, Sears Canada was paying out dividends and not putting the money in fixing up their debt of the pension. So the deficit of the pension plan got bigger, and it got bigger, and billions were being paid out to the shareholders for dividends, why the pension deficit grew to $270 million. And then when they went into CCAA for the protection, it was the fastest one I ever seen, because the average lasted about 2 to 3 years. This one lasted about 4 months. And they just liquidated. So Eddie Lampert was the major shareholder. He had 57% of those shares. He's a big person down in the United States. So all our money went down to the United States, and the pensioners were cut off and got nothing. Like they were just told, sorry, you lose your job, we have no money for termination pay. All the laws that we have in Canada were wiped out by CCAA, and it was taken away from them. So the government has to stop this. They want to stop it, but they're afraid of the big investors. And I'll tell you, I know, and I've been talking to some experts, when people want to lend the money, they don't look at the pension deficit. They want to see how much value the company has. So all this stuff, this scary stuff that they're talking about, I don't buy it. We have to change the law. It's time we protect our pensioners, because you got to remember something. It's taxable income that we're throwing away. And that's what I told the minister. Why are you allowing all this taxable income to be thrown away and then have to go raise taxes somewhere else to find that money? Why we got these rich people that you're giving it, taking them to tax havens, and we don't get a dime of it. Why are you allowing this? They campaigned on it. I'm pushing them. I got to put the fire to, hold their feet to the fire and make sure that this doesn't happen. So how can you help me? And I'm coming across Canada. I've done tours out in the east. I've gone out to Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. I've been to Quebec. I've been in Southern Ontario. And this week I'm out here in the island. I go back to Ottawa, and then I come back out here again to go to the prairies. I want to get the message across. I need your help to call your MP, the finance minister, do letters. There's a sheet around here. You can get onto my website. You can You can sign the petition. And if you're writing a letter, please CC your MP also, so that we can follow that up in the House if you're not getting answers. I want them to feel the pressure and the heat that this is going to be the biggest priority there is. And last week at the NDP convention, it became a priority. We made a resolution, and Jagmeet Singh, our leader, has made it a priority and has been going across the country doing the same thing. So I'm very proud of that. We have to stop it. We can stop it together, but I need your help. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to introduce Ellen Oxman, who's the president of the Nanaimo-Duncan District Labour Council, give us a little bit of the local movement and especially talk about what some of the labour campaigns have been. And then we'll turn it back over to Scott and give a chance for you to ask questions, clarification. And then we'll have about, I don't know, half an hour to talk amongst ourselves at the tables and gather some of your good ideas. So really glad that Ellen Oxman's here. She's active in so many parts of our community, school trustee, organizer, another one of the strong women of labor that benefits a lot of our local campaigns. Really glad you're here. And I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sheila. I don't know if I can live up to that introduction, but thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me here tonight. I want to acknowledge that we're on the traditional unceded territory of the Sunamis people. And again, thanks to our MPs here tonight, Sheila Malcolmson, Alistair MacGregor, who is my MP and very proud of that, and Scott Duvall, for all their work on this issue. I'd like to tell you a bit about our Nanaimo-Duncan District Labour Council and the Canadian Labour Congress. The CLC is a national labour organization that represents over 3 million unionized workers in Canada. We educate, we lobby, and we run campaigns on issues that matter, not only to union members like myself, but to Canadians as a whole. Our Labour Council is the CLC in our community. NDDLC represents over 10,000 unionized members from Qualicum Beach to Mill Bay, and we have over 30 affiliated local unions. And we have heard about the CLC's campaign to expand the Canada Pension Plan. And after years of work, Bill C-26 legislation was adopted in November 2016. And it is a benefit to Canadian workers, and especially young workers. But it also had a great impact on women and persons of disabilities. They're no longer excluded from pension benefits if they leave the workforce to care for children or for health reasons. And our efforts to increase and update CPP are even more important given what today's workers are having to deal with. Pension plans are under attack from employers. They're being used as bargaining chips for a short-term gain. Fewer than 40% of Canadians have access to a pension plan at work, and less than 25% in the private sector. And sadly, statistics tell us that senior women in Canada are twice as likely to live in poverty than men, and are far more reliant on OAS and GIS. We know there is still much work to be done to bring fairness to Canada's pension system and to protect workers, and Scott Duvall's private members' bill will do just that. For workers with a pension plan, these contributions were and are part of our wage package. They aren't given to us, they're negotiated and they're earned. The pension theft from Sears retirees is still fresh in our minds, and they sadly are not alone in dealing with the loss of their future financial stability that will have far-reaching impacts on their quality of life, their health, and their retirement planning. They are owed their money. They earned it. It's deferred wages. They worked for it with the promise of future protection. And thank you to the NDP for standing up for workers. We need to keep pressuring the Liberal government to take action on this issue. They are failing us. They don't talk the talk or walk the walk on protecting pensions. But what can we do? We can contact MPs from other parties and let them know we want to see legislation to protect workers' pensions in Canada now. Write letters, promote the issue on social media, and talk to our friends and families about it. You likely have heard the song Solidarity Forever. It's a classic in the labor movement, and we sing it with great enthusiasm at our events. And it was written in 1915 by Ralph Chaplin. but the words are true today as when they were written. They have taken untold millions that they never toiled to earn, but without our brain and muscle, not a single wheel can turn. Is there anything left to us but to organize and to fight? So let's keep up the fight for fairness, for pensions, and for Canadian workers. Thank you.
So now we're going to just turn the floor over to you, the audience, for any questions that you want to start the night off for Scott. So I'll bring Scott up here, and I'll try and do some traffic direction to make sure we get a good read of the room. And then, you know, when I see the questions run low or we get close to 7:30, then we'll start our breakout groups and start having those discussions. And, you know, Scott, Sheila, and myself will kind of walk around the room if you have any follow-up questions, and then we'll try and stay on track. So I'll go with a show of hands, and I'll try and pick some people out who have questions for Scott. Way in the back.
Scott, what's Bill Morrow's home phone number? No, seriously.
They won't give it out to us.
Well, as an MP, you should have access to it.
No, we have access to his office
No,
number.
no. His home number.
We don't have it.
35 years ago, a Transport Canada minister, Otto Lang, thought he could get away with something in aviation. We got his home number. We started making phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning. How long do you think it took to get it changed? You're not going to approach it with letters is all well and good, but you've got to fight them where it hurts, in their pocketbook and their sleep. Make sure they can't sleep. I'm a pensioner. All I got is OAS and CPP. Thank goodness I got a job. A lot of people don't have a job, can't get a job. I drive taxi 4 days a week. I see the senior single women that don't have the money. It's got to stop.
So,
Get the phone number.
to answer your question, I mean, the phone number, it's a good idea. I like that.
Well, take the offices.
One of the things I did find out is when you're in the House of Commons and you're trying to put the pressure on, you know, that the finance minister, he'll talk about the CPP, but he won't talk about my bill. He refers it to the Minister Baines. Minister Baines, no, they have what they call a caucus, an executive caucus. Whatever the reason of, they're scared from all the big banks and everything. But I do know this, because we've been going out and doing stuff and putting the pressure on, and some of them aren't NDP members, they're Liberal members. There's about 17 that I know of right now. And I've been hearing it because they've been telling me to keep up the pressure. And they're rattling the chain on their caucus. If we can get more Liberal MPs so that they're going to say, tell them, we need this done. That puts the pressure on. That's the only way it's going to work. We need the Liberal MPs to put pressure on their caucus, because otherwise they will not budge. The Prime Minister feels he's helped you. Okay, I'm letting you know that. He gets up and he brags and he boasts what he has done on the CPP and what he's done in the GIS. The cost of living is eroding our people's pensions. It's not enough. We're supposed to come up with a seniors price index. He hasn't even talked about it. So the 80 cents that these people get on every quarter of the month for old age security, come on, I mean, let's be realistic. Their rents are going up unbelievable, okay, and they're just getting less and less. And we're forcing the people to go to the food banks, and that's not the Canada I want to live in. So we need your support. Hit the Liberals hard and copy us so that we have proof to them when we sit up in the House of Commons speaking for Canada.
I saw you first, yeah, in the middle.
A question, please. I'd like to get into a few specifics besides just phoning somebody at home. As an individual, and you mentioned write letters, copy it, like who should we actually be directing our communications to in the form of written communications or media? Is it to our own MP already knows what the situation is. So who should we be directing our communications to?
So to the finance minister, Also, what really, really helps to get things going, to the media, making a letter in the media and get them to print it out so that the word goes out. And we gotta keep talking about it because it's the only way to put pressure on it. So there's all kinds of social media, but when you have the news media doing it in narrow writing and they're trying to beat the person in the next election, they're gonna have a problem. The first thing you're gonna say to them, what did you guys do for us? Why did you turn down that bill? Why are we last on the totem pole? So the finance minister, and then copy your MP. And sign the petitions.
I work for the federal government, and a number of years ago, the Conservatives took our surplus. They took $28 billion out of our own funded pension plan through superannuation, and we lost that fight at the Supreme Court. Can you tell me what the NDP is doing to assist federal public servants in keeping their pension monies in their pension plan?
So I can't tell you what we're doing federally because it's a provincial issue. They get regulated by, on the federal side of it, yes, Conrad Black taught us a big lesson back in those days that when they have a surplus, it's not our money. The company has met its obligation, and that's what the deal was, and that's what the judge agreed on. So we've been close to saying, okay, we don't want a surplus. Maybe make a little bit underfunding to keep paying it, but it's not even when they have a surplus, they get to take it away. They just don't make any more payments until, but the market might crash, right? So in a way, it's good to have a surplus, but another way, it's kind of bad because they're not making the payments that you're negotiated your deferred wages to. So to answer your question, you have to go. I don't control on the public service for the province, but on the federal government, the law is the law. Nothing has been changed in that time.
Hi, my name is Iris. You had a really good point about the economy when the pension money disappears. The municipal people, like your cities and that, they're not getting that money flow into their economy. So I think we could get municipalities, we could get provincial governments thinking along that line. This is their tax base. They're losing money, okay? And that's important to them. And not only that, I worked for the Manitoba telephone system. I used to be a rep for the CLC, okay, I'm retired. My pension, I'm still getting it, so I hope to. Anyway, when I worked for the Manitoba Tel, they took the surplus, they took holidays.
Yes.
Okay? For 10 years, we fought that company. We fought the company, through the unions fought the company, and they won. And we got those contribution holidays back. I got a big check for 10 grand. Okay? Well, they took half of it in tax. Okay? But hey, I earned that money. Okay? I earned that money. And so all the members that worked at MTS at that time got checks. We won that fight. It took us 10 years, but we won that fight. So we can't back down. These fights can be won. I really feel bad for the people at Sears. I don't know how that happened, but you're right. They stole the money. It's in the States. But that's our lost municipality, of the wages. All that is lost in our economy. And that's a crime. That's theft.
And I thank you for that, and I thank you for bringing up about the municipality, because I am drafting, we've been working on a draft to send out to anybody that's interested to the municipalities. And the reason why I'm doing it in Hamilton as a former councillor. I have councillors all already lined up that they're going to pass this resolution that they write into the government that to change the law, because they have to fight on the pennies of the dollar. So it just keeps getting worse and worse. And the lawyers are getting bolder and bolder how they're doing this. One thing I forgot to tell you, and I'm glad you mentioned about the fight in court. The other thing that the NDP is trying to do, and probably in the CLC that we agree on, is making a pension guaranteed fund. So if something happens to our pension, that there's a protection. So we have it in Ontario. We're the only province that has it in Canada. Right now, it's the pension guarantee fund is $1,000. So for instance, you worked at Sears, I worked at Sears in Ontario, you worked in BC. At the end of this day, when it comes out, if it's 30% underfunded, we're gonna get 70 cents on the dollar. We're both in the same fund. But in Ontario, because I live there, I get the first $1,000 guaranteed. The second $1,000, I would get 70 cents on the buck, so I would $1,700. In BC, because there is no pension guarantee fund, you're gonna lose 70 cents on the $2,000, or 30% of the $2,000. So you'll get $1,400 while I get $1,700. That's not fair. So it should be national across the country that this is gonna go into. We're hoping to double it. We got to $1,500, but we are looking at nationally going at it and making it $2,500. Because we gotta do something soon. Otherwise, the way it's going, everybody's gonna collapse.
I want to understand underfunding. When you say they're underfunded, does that mean the corporation hasn't made their requisite contribution to the pension plan? And if so, are there no laws about that? Is there no one monitoring that? How did they get away with that?
So what it is, the company goes in and they find out how much they gotta pay, and it's regulated by your province. They pay into a fund. But whatever they calculated their numbers, a high rate gives them a lower payment. Some use a medium rate. So usually it's around 6 to 6.5% that they're gonna get returned. Some years the market goes so bad, they don't. They only make maybe a 1%. So now they got a bigger debt. So now they got to make up that loss. The problem is the pensions actuarial reports are only done every 3 years. The company knows what that underfunded is, but they won't tell you, and they're not obligated to tell you until the actuarial report comes out. So then you find out, well, geez, you know what? They lost 50 million. We're in the fund of 50 million. So there's a percentage by the regulators that once you get below, and in some provinces, and I'll just say for Ontario, it's 82%. Once you get below that, they get called in, and they say, you're making your regular payments. We understand that, but you got a big loss here. So we're going to give you 5 years, and you're going to pay this extra money within 5 years. But they make them pay at the lowest denominator. And then sometimes when they don't hit it, they'll ask for an extension for 10 years. So they're hoping the market's going to go up again and it'll decrease. And that's how it's being underfunded. It's what they're investing in. And it can happen. If you look at Air Canada was on the verge of going bankrupt and liquidating just a few years ago. They went into CCAA, but they were paying dividends out there doing everything, and the bonus money. So the deal that the government made with them, they say, we will back you up on your pension underfunding, as long as you promise that you will cap your bonus money at inflation rate, and you do not pay dividends out until you're back on your feet. That was a promise. Air Canada has now $1 billion over in their pension fund. It works, but the pension regulators in the provinces don't know what the other companies are doing, and they really don't care. They just see the money, you've made your payments, you're still in with the law, and that's what Sears did. They were making the payments, but they're blowing all their money on dividends instead of actually paying the debt. So they paid out in dividends 5 times more than what they owed to the pension, 5 times more. I mean, that's how greedy you got. And then they planned to go into liquidate.
Does Bill C-27 have a hope in hell of getting through?
Well,
No, the reason I'm asking is, if it's getting through, if it's got any hope of getting through, are all federal employees, including MPs, going to go to a target pension plan? Or are the MPs going to make sure that they still have a defined benefit pension plan?
and that's a very good question, because I'd asked the finance minister that. Why don't you put ours in there? It won't happen. What they're after, they're going after Canada Post. But Mr. Morneau can make lots of money on this.
Well,
Can it go through?
How can they go after the workers if they're not gonna do it to themselves?
Oh,
I mean,
well,
how can a federal government pass a bill to screw their workers and at the same time protect their own pension plan?
that's the government power, and that's what they do, they're
Well,
ruthless.
yeah, but,
They're
I mean, how
ruthless.
can you look a person straight in the face and say it's fair?
Well, if you can get an answer from them, I would, please share it with me, but, your answer though, has a chance. The government has the majority of power,
I know they do.
so they can make it happen.
So my point is, are they also gonna do it to themselves?
No,
Well, that's not logical. How can they do it?
I'm just
to
saying, you know, probably the answer is no, because we have a separate plan.
But if you're going to do it to federal employees, like the postal
Yeah.
worker, you have to do it
I
to
hear you.
yourself.
I hear you.
How can you lead and screw one of your groups?
No, we hear you. We
I hear you.
Yeah.
Sorry, another question about trying to get public awareness. And I understand that individuals have to engage, but can you help us with, what can the party do? Like, for example, can you not get to the media, Global TV, whoever it is, to present this kind of information on a broader, in a broader spectrum, on a broader format? Or is that politically
Well,
incorrect?
I know what you're asking, so there's information on there. We have kids in my office, so I've been helping everybody, so that's why I'm getting the word out. So I've been giving information out to our MPs, our colleagues, to show them where I am and what the people are saying. Try to do as much updates as I can so they have it, so that they don't get caught and say, what are you guys doing about it? You know, well, we're doing a lot about it. One of the biggest problems we're having is I'm sending out media releases and they will not pick it up. They are so liberalized that they were saying, well, we don't want to do this. I was getting great attention on CPAC when it all came out first, but now all of a sudden it's kind of quiet down. And that's why the letters to the editor would be very, very helpful, because that sells papers. Well, it seems to be coming. That's why I'm doing my Canadian tour. I just don't want to sit in Ottawa and wait for the phone calls. I have to get that message out to the people then can help us back, and it becomes a bigger thing. But we have petitions, we have everything. We have kits, we have information. The unions are helping us. The CLC, you see that little flyer that they have in there. I asked them to make that up, and they did a great job on it. We got the machinists union that's working very, very hard and putting it out in there to their workers. We got the steel workers. We got UFCW. Everybody, I'm trying to contact everybody to get this out to everyday's lives.
Yes, this is something you alluded to. I'm one of the many thousands of people in this area that live on CPP, OAS, and GIS. And I figured out this year my cost of living increase was 0.6%, which doesn't go anywhere near meeting what the actual cost of living is. So how do they figure that out when they give you the few pennies every month extra each year?
So they go by the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, and so if inflation goes to 1.8%, the CPI might not go to 1.8 because they say, well, we don't count this and this. And then they give you a calculation rate, and I think they owe it is, they give it to you quarterly. The Canada Pension Plan went up $20, but that's at maximum. Okay, if people get maximum. So you got to remember, when the government talks about the great thing they did, well, they're talking about maximum pension. So the maximum for Canada Pension Plan right now, I think, is $1,137. The average payment going to Canadians is $640. So there's a big gap there. And you know, how do you get up? I know when my parents were living, I always said to my dad, because he didn't have, we lost our inflation indexing, our cost of living. And my dad retired, I guess when he died, 22 years for that. And he basically lived too long. And it's an awful thing to say. And I said, that's what the people are saying to you. you live too long. And people are living longer. And we're saying to the government, you gotta do something to help these people. So the NDP, we agree. We would make it to get out of poverty, not to stay into poverty.
Yeah, like I'm going to.
Right.
So the next three questions I saw was 1, 2, and 3. And then we're getting pretty close to 7:30. We'll go to our discussion groups, but there will still be time for a few more questions within the table because Scott, Sheila, and I will be traveling around. So we'll start with you, sir.
I picked up this brochure on the table under recommendations. It states under bankruptcy that pensioners are to be first in line. This is what I expected to hear at this meeting. And then I pick up your handout, and I see that it's number 5 on your list of priorities. I don't quite understand that.
So on the list of priorities, and I have my sheet over there. The list of priorities, at first it's the income tax money, CPP, and EI
Well,
reduces.
why should we be giving that money to the government and that when it should be going to the employees first? To help the government. They don't need to get that money.
Well, it is your money. CPP and EI is your money. So that money's continued. Hear me out for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay? And then the second priority is, and don't ask me, if you ask me the question, I can't give you an answer because I can't get one, is farmers. And I don't know why farmers are in there, and it looks like if they were doing a crop or something and that was their whole lifestyle, they would make sure they would get their money. They're second in line. And then there is a third one of employees' pensions that were deducted but not remitted yet. And then there's another one of...
Suppliers of unpaid goods.
Yeah, so they've taken that off, right? They haven't put it into the fund. So they protected us that way, and that was tinkered with the last time they opened the bill. But they didn't do nothing for the shortfall funding. So then there's something else, it's very, very minor. And then it came back to the banks and shareholders and everybody, and then everybody else was into what they call unsecured. We're moving ourselves up, and we're gonna put ourselves in that spot, and the banks are gonna go underneath us. So all the other stuff we kind of agree with, it's just simple stuff, people shouldn't be ripped off. But because it's very, very little money we're talking about, and the rest of it goes to us first. And then whatever's liquidated, if there's more assets and everything, then it goes to the banks, and then it goes to the unsecured creditors. We're moving us up from unsecured to a secured creditor. Does that make sense?
Well, except for the suppliers of unpaid goods. They're taking a risk when they...
Yeah. So
why shouldn't we be above them?
So basically what that is just say you were in a steel mill and I ordered $1.5 million of strapping. 3 days later, I go back, I go into CCAA, right? And I liquidate.
Right.
That supplier says, give me back my strapping.
Right.
Okay, I'm not losing, I have $1.5 million. Give me back my material. Because it was it was a shammy deal. That's what that means.
Oh, I see, just repossess the goods not paid for.
Right.
That's right, yeah.
Sorry.
You mentioned a kit. Can we get a copy of that?
Absolutely, in my office. If anybody contacts my office, we'll send them out by mail. We'll give you all the material that we have. There's publications of newspapers by lawyers, people's comments and what they're doing. So we'll give you whatever we can.
Okay.
Just contact me, and I'll make sure it's mailed out.
And one last quick question.
So,
Thank you.
my name is Paul Smith. I'm from Nanaimo. I'm a registered nurse, and this here's my dad. He's 75. My dad's worked very hard to provide a good life for me. He's from Pacific Press, a good union man, just like I am. I'm very afraid from what I've just heard today, because if his pension goes south, I'm going to be the one working my ass off. And I really wish there was more young people here to listen to this, truly. Now, before I get to my question, I want you and Sheila to know my email to Bill Monroe has already gone in, and yes, you have both CC'd. And it's on my Facebook. You mentioned unions, and we had a very passionate speaker today who spoke about women. So, have you contacted the nursing unions from across Canada?
I haven't personally, but the CLC and everybody is working together. What I've done is I've worked with the people in Hamilton and in Toronto, and when I'm in Ottawa, so I meet basically a lot of the directors, the presidents of the steelworkers, and I'm asking them to help us out. But I haven't, contacted directly. I'm hoping that these people will, and we're doing it. We're trying to do as much as we can.
I'll do my part in BC and contact the BC Nurses Union.
You have my information. We'll do everything we can. And I'm proud to see your father here because you made a very, very good point. Because when my father passed, my mother was still, there just wasn't enough. So she's lucky. We had a large family that we had to take her in and look after her. But some people don't have that support, right? And what are we going to do? We have to do something.
One more question?
Yeah, sure, one more. Yeah.
So I'm an ex-IBM pensioner, 37 years, and tomorrow, IBM pensioners, they have a National Day of Action. Are you aware of that at all?
No, I'm not.
I met one of your colleagues in my office today.
Oh, okay. It's actually tomorrow is the Day of Action, right? Yeah. But, so they're all going to we're supposed to go to the MPs, Liberal MPs offices, right?
Good.
But this is the only, we don't have any here, right? So I saw this in the paper, this meeting, so I came, and they refer to it as super priority. Is that how you refer to it?
Yes.
Okay.
So at first we were kind of scared to use that because we thought we'd blow everybody away and say we're going to be, but it is. It's what people want to see, that we're ahead of the banks and the shareholders. That's what they want to see.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. So the bill is written that way. I can show you the actual, I have in my briefcase, where we actually stand and the reason why we stand in there. And the other reason why we're number 5th is we have to watch what we do because when you are in CCAA, the unions are involved if you're unionized. The unions have to get involved, but if we block ourselves so tight, we don't become involved anymore because it's an automatic law. So they can do whatever they want to do instead of us being at the table and getting a chance to negotiate or whatever. And that's what the unions wanted. And I had them all sitting at a table. It took 6 months to get everybody together and finally agree to a way of making this happen.
So we're a non-union company, always have been, right? Anti-union, almost, right?
So if you're non-union,
yeah,
and if this happens, then the judge will order the court monitor, whoever that is. You guys form a group, and they'll get you a lawyer. Okay, that's how it works, and that's what happened in Sears. And they got 3 strong men that are really taking them to task. I got to give them a lot of credit.
So why is this action needed for a company that's fully funded for pension? And what I don't understand what's going to happen to change that. Like, we're in control now. Why will we not under control? Like,
because the law was legislated in 1927. It worked then when the times were bad.
yeah.
And it gave a company some time to find a new lender, keep the jobs and not liquidate. And it worked good. And then it wasn't used for a while. Then in the 80s, it started picking up in the 90s. An average of 40 companies a year go into bankruptcy protection. But in the 80s and 90s, when it was happening, they were getting bolder. And they can do it because that's the way the law is written. And we've been trying to change it. Before I came city councilor, for 10 years prior to that, I was in Ottawa lobbying the government to change this law. I've been working on this thing for a long time, and that's one of the reasons I went to Ottawa. In my 2nd year, we are making great gains. Even even the lawyers and some of the investors are saying, Scott, you're right, it's about time. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Okay, so very, very quickly, because we want to get to the breakout
If
groups.
this
Yeah.
concept of super priority doesn't come about, okay, if it's defeated, why aren't some common sense legislation items brought forward? Like, for example, Sears is a really good example. The company borrowed money to pay super dividends, okay? They actually borrowed money to do that. They did share buybacks, and they had to borrow money to do that.
But they didn't
So
borrow money.
why can't the government prevent companies from doing things like that when the pension plan is underfunded?
Because that's what we're trying to do. So when we sit at the table with them, we're trying to say, we got easy solutions here. Do what you did with Air Canada. They can't pay out dividends. They cannot give out massive bonuses. That's an insult to people, especially when you cut them off of benefits.
But Sears isn't Air Canada.
But, no, but this is the law. And that's why they can do it. And that's why I'm here to change the law. And it's that simple.
But if you can't get the super priority because the bank lobby, okay, then why can't these simple little things be brought in, like you can't borrow money to pay dividends, you can't borrow money to give yourself bonuses, you can't do...
And that might be it. But we don't know. Somebody's got to start kicking the can. The bill was tabled. It's a private member's bill and it's low on the priority. So if we make enough noise and everything, maybe somebody will take that bill. And I'll be more than happy. And one of the things I want to tell you is, it's gaining some interest. When I told you about the 17 Liberals, I even had a senator call me. And that was 3 weeks ago. And we had a good little chat. And he wanted to know what the Liberals are doing, and he's a Liberal himself. But he agrees with what I'm trying to do.
Well, it's the right thing.
So we're just going to move to the breakout groups, but I just wanted to add 3 quick things based on the questions I heard. First of all, sir, you had asked about why farmers were listed up there. It's farmers of perishable products. I'm the NDP's agricultural critic. So when farmers ship their fruit to a grocer, if that grocer chain goes bankrupt, the farmer very well can't get his apples back. They've all gone off. So they have to have some kind of a protective mechanism in there for farmers of perishable goods because their product cannot be returned to them like strappings on steel. Sir, when you asked about C-27, we had an opposition day motion on Bill Morneau's ethics and his ties to Morneau-Chapelle. When I gave a speech on that day, I dared the Liberals to bring C-27 forward for debate. That bill has been stuck at first reading ever since it was introduced. We've already mounted a very strong campaign against it, and we are calling their bluff on it. But seriously, if that bill ever comes forward for debate, we are ready to pounce on it. And furthermore, we had some questions as to why we're lobbying all these Liberals. It comes down to how private members' bills are voted on. When government bills are voted on, they're voted by party, by bloc. When private members' bills are voted on, you start with the back rows because you want a completely free vote. So we want the Liberal backbench to start voting first before the cabinet. And that's why we're working on Liberal MPs and mounting this campaign. But we need your help to convince the cabinet because ultimately we want Morneau and Minister Baines to get started on this process and to back this up. So with that, we're now going to start on the breakout groups. I think questions have been passed around. Lauren, do you have anything to add?
All right, so we'll just go to the group discussion portion of the evening. I've dropped off just some breakout questions for each group to kind of fill out as you do some storytelling. Our MPs are going to travel around, visit with each table. If you can kind of designate someone to be the recorder for your table and kind of take down some of your ideas, feel free to use the back of the sheet. I'm going to come around and collect these up after. Anything you want to put down, all feedback is good feedback. While you do that and engage in discussion, storytelling, our MPs will come around and visit your tables. If you have any questions, I'll also be walking around with more CLC pamphlets, contact information for Scott's office, and how you can get involved in making sure that we push this through. So if you see me and need something, wave me down. Otherwise, enjoy the discussion. We'll be back in about half an hour. Thank you.
Val for making the trip from Hamilton to come out and hear our local stories, but also be able to kind of bang the drum and get a bit of interest in the solution that he's proposing. A couple of things that occurred to me in particular. remember that if you do sign the petition that we've got out front, and I think we've been circulating them through the room as well, every time we get 25 signatures, Alistair or Scott or I get to stand up in the House and give a minute-long speech about this issue and about what we've heard from people in the riding. So if you haven't already signed the petition, please do on your way out, or take a couple extra copies, pass it around to your friends at the coffee shop. All we need is 25 signatures. You can mail it to either of us. It's free postage. Alistair MacGregor, MP, House of Commons, Ottawa. It'll get there free. You don't need to put a stamp on the envelope, or else you can drop it off at one of our offices. Letters to the editor, a really good idea that came up, and the Ladysmith Chronicle, who is represented here tonight, they were especially happy to hear that we would be encouraging people to support local media. Do send those letters to the editor. Short and sweet, doesn't have to take a lot of time, but it does let your neighbors know that it's of interest to you as well. And don't be dismayed by the fact that you don't have Liberal MPs on the island. Write us your letters. Write to the Finance Minister, copy us as Scott recommended, and we're really happy to take that message. And we think this government should want to do the right thing, and so we're going to keep as much positive pressure on them, but especially getting the personal stories that you've told us and that you've recorded for us to take back for our storytelling are really important and really helpful. And just maybe a final piece, reminder that when people have a little bit more money in their pockets or a little bit more money in their bank accounts, we know they spend it here in our local communities. And so if we can have people retiring just a little bit more secure, or else if we can pass this legislation and let people that have the confidence, who are working hard and putting money into pensions right now, to know that that pension is going to be waiting for them when they do hit retirement. Everybody's going to be able to invest more deeply in our community. They'll be able to stay here, raise their kids here. And if they've got a bit more money in their pocket, they will spend it in local businesses. So we know it's a good investment if everybody just does a little bit better. And that's what Alistair and Scott and I are working really hard for every day. It's great to see so many friendly faces out here, and really appreciate you sharing your time with us and sharing your stories with us. Thank you for coming.
I don't think I can really add too much more to what Sheila said, but you know, in this day and age when we are all so connected with each other, you know, the communication tools we have at our disposal are quite fantastic if you compare it to even 20 or 30 years ago. And you know, we don't exist in silos. These conversations are happening right across this country. Scott's been doing his tour. We have our caucus of 44 MPs who are doing the job in their own ridings, but you can help us. Everyone here has family or friends or some person you know that lives in a Liberal-held riding. And if you can send the message out to your families and friends, help amplify that message. Because if we are approaching Liberal MPs and they're starting to hear this from their constituents, we can make a case. This is all about honoring a contract with workers who played by the rules. And you know, let's not forget the fact that companies don't get their value by the numbers on a balance sheet. It's by the workers who every day go out and represent that company, who sell the product to customers, who are the face of the organization. Most people don't know who the CEO, who the chairperson, who the board of directors are, but they know the person who wears the company uniform and is there selling the product and is the face of that company. And when you've put in 20, 30, or 40 years for that company paying off of every paycheck into a pension plan that you thought was going to be there for when you retired, this is about simple fairness. And I know deep in my heart that politicians, my colleagues in every party, I know that a lot of them, most of them are there for the right reasons. They want to do right by their communities. They want to make this country a better place. And where the politics comes into play is that we have different ideas on how to achieve that. But on something so basic, like fairness of honoring a pension contract, I don't know how you can make an argument against that. It's really coming from the high-end lobbyists getting after cabinet. So we need to make that Liberal caucus understand that this is a sure win. This is a way that we go forward and make this country fairer. So Please help us. We're going to continue this campaign. It's by no means over. But if you can help amplify our message with your friends and family across this country, you know, together we can do some good. So thank you for coming out and showing that you care. Yeah.